Mia wasn't afraid of anything, except maybe spiders. Okay, and heights. She had always been the brave one among her friends, the one who would take on any challenge without a second thought. But spiders? Those tiny, eight-legged creatures could make her heart race and her palms sweat. And heights? Well, let's just say she preferred to keep her feet firmly on the ground, but definitely not the dark, or being alone. She loved the thrill of exploring unknown places, the excitement of venturing into the depths of a dark cave where every step was a mystery. The darkness was her ally, a cloak that wrapped around her, making her feel invincible. And being alone, that was her time to think, to dream, to plan her next big adventure. Well, maybe a little bit alone? Sometimes, in the quiet moments when the world was still and her thoughts were loud, she felt a pang of loneliness. It was fleeting, but it was there, a reminder that even the bravest souls need companionship.
See, Mia was all about independence. She walked through life with a confidence that turned heads, her blue hair a beacon of her individuality. She didn't just march to the beat of her own drum, she composed the entire symphony. She craved it. Freedom to be herself with her bright blue hair and even brighter ideas. Her hair was more than just a color, it was a statement, a declaration of her refusal to conform. Her ideas were like her hair, bold, vibrant, and unapologetically her own. She was the leader of their little trio, always dragging Emma and Sophie into crazy adventures. Whether it was a spontaneous road trip to a forgotten town or a midnight hike to a hidden waterfall, Mia was the spark that ignited their escapades. But losing her independence, that was a fear that lurked in the back of her mind, a shadow she couldn't outrun. It was a fear that whispered to her in the quiet moments, a fear that she might one day have to give up the freedom she cherished so dearly.
One time, Mia convinced Emma and Sophie to sneak onto a rooftop at night. It was one of those impulsive ideas that Mia was famous for, the kind that made her friends roll their eyes but follow her anyway, just to watch the sunrise. They sat there, huddled together against the chill of the night, watching as the first light of dawn painted the sky in hues of pink and gold. Sophie was terrified of getting caught, but Mia just laughed. Her laughter was infectious, a sound that could chase away any fear. To Mia, the risk was part of the thrill, a reminder that they were alive and free. "Come on, Soph," she'd said, "live a little." It was more than just a phrase. It was a philosophy, a way of life that Mia embraced with every fiber of her being. That was Mia's motto, live a little. She even had it tattooed on her wrist, a permanent reminder to seize every moment, to embrace every adventure. Don't let fear hold you back. She faced her fears head-on, whether it was the darkness of an alleyway or the uncertainty of the future. But deep down, a tiny part of her was always afraid of being held back. It was a fear that she rarely acknowledged, a fear that she kept hidden behind her confident exterior. Held back by what? She didn't know. Maybe it was the fear of losing her independence, or the fear of not living up to her own expectations. Whatever it was a fear that haunted her, a fear that she couldn't quite shake, but the fear was there, a whisper in the wind. It was a reminder that even the bravest souls have their moments of doubt, their moments of vulnerability. And that was okay, because in the end, it was those moments that made her human, that made her real.
Emma was the practical one. She was the kind of person who always had a plan, a backup plan, and a backup for the backup plan. Her friends often joked that she could organize a hurricane if she had to. With her fiery red hair and even fierier temper, she kept Mia grounded. Someone had to. Emma was the anchor in their friendship, the one who made sure that their dreams didn't float away into the clouds without a tether. While Mia was busy dreaming up their next adventure, Emma was the one making sure they had snacks and a map and a backup plan just in case. She would pack everything meticulously, from the first aid kit to the extra batteries for their flashlights. Because Emma, unlike Mia, was terrified of the unknown. The idea of stepping into uncharted territory without a clear plan made her uneasy. She needed to know what was coming next, to have a sense of control over her environment. She liked things planned out, organized, predictable. Her room was always tidy, her schedule always full but never chaotic. Emma found comfort in the routine, in the predictability of her well-laid plans. Sophie, on the other hand, was quiet. She was the observer, the one who noticed the little details that everyone else missed. Her silence was not a sign of shyness, but a testament to her deep thinking. She observed everything with her big blue eyes, taking in the world around her with a sense of wonder and curiosity. Every leaf, Every shadow, every fleeting moment was a story waiting to be told. Capturing the world through her camera lens was her way of making sense of it all. Each click of the shutter was a moment frozen in time, a piece of the puzzle that was her life. Her blonde hair was usually pulled back in a ponytail, framing a face that rarely showed any strong emotion. It was as if she saved all her expressions for her photographs, letting her art speak for her, except when she was behind her camera. Then her passion shone through, capturing the beauty and the chaos of their lives. Her eyes would light up, her hands steady, as if the camera was an extension of her soul. She had a knack for finding beauty in the mundane and chaos in the serene. Her photographs were a reflection of her inner world, a blend of order and disorder, much like her own life. Sophie was afraid of a lot of things. We had spiders, like Mia, heights, like Mia. But her fears went deeper than that. They were the kind of fears that kept her awake at night, the ones that whispered in the dark corners of her mind. But mostly, Sophie was afraid of being invisible, of fading into the background, unnoticed. She feared that her quiet nature would make her disappear in a world that often valued loudness and bravado. She worried that her voice, her thoughts, her very essence would be lost in the noise of everyday life. S2, just in case. So she used her camera to make her mark, to ensure that she was seen, that her perspective was valued. Through her lens, she found a way to be visible, to be heard, to be remembered. Mia, Emma and Sophie, three totally different personalities drawn together like magnets. They'd been friends since kindergarten, when Mia had tried to trade her goldfish crackers for Emma's peanut butter sandwich. Sophie had captured the whole thing on her disposable camera, a memory forever etched in their minds.
They had inside jokes that only they understood. They had shared secrets that bound them together tighter than any rope. They had seen each other at their best and worst, and their friendship had only grown stronger. They were more than friends, they were sisters. And nothing, not even a missing friend, could break that bond.
It had been a late-night study session. Finals were looming, and even Mia, who usually aced everything effortlessly, was feeling the pressure. They'd piled into Emma's car, textbooks scattered around them like fallen leaves. Emma had dropped Mia off last, her headlights illuminating the familiar street.
See you tomorrow, Mia had said, her voice muffled by her scarf. Don't let Emma stress you out too much.
Emma, ever practical, had called out, "Text us when you get inside," but the text never came.
At first, they weren't worried. Mia's phone was notorious for dying at the worst possible moments. But as the hours ticked by, a knot of fear began to tighten in their chests. Something was wrong. Mia was missing. Section 5, the note.
Emma, ever the planner, immediately started retracing their steps. She remembered every detail of their drive, every turn, every house they'd passed.
Sophie, usually quiet and reserved, surprised them both. She pulled out her camera, her fingers flying over the buttons.
"What are you doing?"
Emma asked, her voice tight with worry.
Mia always leaves clues.
Sophie said, her eyes scanning the photos she'd taken earlier that night. And there it was. In the reflection of Emma's rearview mirror, a tiny piece of paper folded in half. A note. Section 6, remember when? The note was written in Mia's messy handwriting.
The one behind the old bakery? It said. Emma racked her brain. Their childhood treehouse, the one they hadn't visited in years. Remember the treehouse?
Sophie asked, already pulling up directions on her phone.
"Of course. The one where we swore we'd be friends forever. The one where Mia dared us to.
Her voice trailed off.
The one where Mia dared us to leave a message for our future selves."
They raced towards the park, their hearts pounding in their chests. The old bakery was gone, replaced by a shiny new coffee shop, but the park remained, a haven of green in the middle of the city. As they approached the familiar oak tree, Sophie gasped. She exclaimed, pointing to a small wooden box nailed to one of the branches. It was the same box they'd used to store their future selves' messages. Emma reached for it, her fingers trembling. Inside, nestled amongst faded photographs and childhood trinkets, was another note. S3. Look!
"You think she's here?"
I don't know. Emma whispered, her eyes scanning the park. It was deserted, the playground equipment standing silent and empty.
Sophie replied, her voice barely a whisper. She clutched her camera tightly as if it could somehow protect them from whatever was happening. They followed the path deeper into the park, their footsteps echoing in the stillness. The air was thick with the smell of pine needles and damp earth. A sense of unease settled over them, a feeling that they were being watched. Emma called out, her voice trembling slightly. S2, Mia?
Mia, if you can hear us, please answer.
There was a rustle in the bushes, and then Mia finally emerged. Her blue hair was a mess, her clothes were torn, but she was smiling. She exclaimed, pulling Emma and Sophie into a hug. Here's one. You found me.
I knew you would.
Later, after the police had been called and Mia had been checked over by paramedics, they sat huddled together in Emma's living room. The room was filled with a tense silence, broken only by the occasional murmur of the officers and the beeping of medical equipment. The friends clung to each other, their faces pale and eyes wide with lingering fear. They had been through a lot, and the reality of the situation was just beginning to sink in. Sophie asked, her voice filled with concern. Mia explained that she'd been followed home from the library and had managed to give her pursuer the slip. She'd gone to the park, to their treehouse, knowing that it was the one place Emma and Sophie would be sure to find her. The treehouse had always been their sanctuary, a place where they could escape the world and be themselves. It was a symbol of their friendship, built with their own hands during countless summer afternoons. As she spoke, they realized that it hadn't been just Mia's clues that had led them to her. It had been their friendship, their shared history. The countless hours spent together, the secrets shared, the laughter and the tears. All of it had created a bond so strong that they could almost sense each other's presence, even in the darkest of times. Their deep understanding of each other's thoughts and fears. They had found Mia because they knew her better than anyone else in the world. They knew her habits, her favorite hiding spots, and the way her mind worked. It was this intimate knowledge that had guided them to her, like an invisible thread connecting their hearts. And in that moment, they knew that their bond was unbreakable, stronger than ever. They had faced a terrifying ordeal and come out the other side, not just as friends, but as sisters. Their love and trust in each other had been tested and had emerged unscathed, shining brighter than before. What happened? They had been through a nightmare, but they had survived it together. And now, as they sat in the dimly lit room, they knew that no matter what the future held, they would face it together. Their friendship was their strength, their shield against the world. And with that knowledge, they felt a renewed sense of hope and determination. They were stronger than ever.